Every year as we get into the middle of summer, we start to get really anxious and excited and a little bit maybe agitated and aggravated as football fans because we know the NFL season is very close yet so far away. And for those of you that are like me that play fantasy football every year, it just gets that much more aggravating and agitating and gets you that much more excited and anxious because you know the start of the fantasy football season is right around the corner. So I figured, leading up to the 2014 NFL and fantasy football season that I would come on here and do a series of videos giving you some fantasy football draft tips. I will talk about things to do in the build-up and the run-up to your fantasy football draft or drafts. I will give you some tips on what to do, what you actually are getting ready to draft, and then talk about some things to do once you've actually drafted. And today's topic is going to be about the importance of waiting to draft. Now, I understand with the excitement and the anxiousness and the anticipation that comes with the start of the NFL season and as a consequence, the start of the fantasy football season that a lot of you are chomping at the bit. You're ready to go, you're raring to go, and you just want to hurry up and get things underway. I understand this, but sometimes it's best to pump the brakes a little bit and slow your asses down. I don't understand why so many people every year do their fantasy football drafts so early. Like I see people doing them in the first or second week or weekend of August. Why? Why in the hell would you want to do your draft so early? Hell, I see people do fantasy football drafts when training camp starts. Why in the bluest of blue hells would you do that? There's just an abundance of reasons that indicate that this is a failed strategy and this is just flat out stupid. And let me tell you why. I mean, just think about this. Drafting in the first or second weekend of August or even the last weekend of July. How stupid. Think about what you're missing out on. You're missing out on seeing how positional battles play out. By drafting that early, you're guessing. You think you know how it's going to play out, but more likely than not, you probably don't know how it's going to play out. You're also missing out on seeing some potential fantasy sleepers emerge, guys that might be late round picks that you take a little bit earlier than everybody else envisioned that ends up stepping up and playing big for you. Well, if you're drafting at the very beginning of the preseason, you have no clue about what's going to happen. Again, you think you know, but more often than not, you probably don't know. Here's another big kicker. Why draft so early in the preseason and then 2 weeks later, your first or second or third round pick, your running back or wide receiver goes down with a major ACL injury and misses the entire season? Why sit there and draft so early where those injuries could potentially cost you before the season has even started? Ever have that happen to you? Ever see how hard it is to get back into the mix? Ever see how stupid you look? Ever see how many people make fun of you because of it? I mean, think about that. And the biggest thing of all you miss out on is preparation time. Why sit there and draft at the beginning of the month when you could draft later in the month? You're giving yourself potentially weeks of additional preparation time to see how these positional battles play out, see some potential fantasy sleepers emerge, factor in some potential injuries for the start of the season and potentially the whole season, and give yourself some time to research history of the positions, research how guys produce, and research the schedules and everything else. Bottom line is, wait to do your drafts. So as you can see, as I just explained, there are too many risks associated with drafting early and too little reward, and there's really no freaking reason to do it, so don't do it. My advice to you is to wait until after every team has played 3 preseason games. So after that third full week of the preseason, then you can start doing your fantasy football drafts. It still leaves you about a 10 to 12 day window to do your drafts. I know a lot of you will do multiple leagues like I do. It's still plenty of time to do all of that. But by then, every team's played 3 preseason games. You start to see who's going to win or lose the positional battles. A lot of the major injuries that would have happened have already occurred because most teams are going to rest their starters for most, if not all, of the last preseason game. You've been able to maximize your preparation time. You've been able to see some potential fantasy sleepers, come up. And the bottom line is it's a win-win-win. Just fucking do it. Wait to draft. Wait until after week 3 of the preseason. Don't do it any earlier. Otherwise, you're taking too much to chance here. Let me know what you think. Next up in this series, I will talk about the importance of checking your league's settings and making sure that you don't look like a moron heading into your draft. But remember, first and foremost, wait to draft.